Hey there, this is your pal Pally, and welcome back to Git Er Raid. Warlords of Draenor beta testing heats up with some mythic mode bosses. What more could a butcher want to cleave upon? Fresh meat! Well, in this case, not so fresh meat. Next up, we have the butcher in Mythic Highmaul. If you haven't watched my guide to this fight on heroic mode, please take a look at that first, as I'll be referring to the mechanics in there a lot. Any changes for mechanic, I'll certainly be noting. As always, mechanics can change from the time a fight is beta tested to when it is actually released live. So, in case you didn't remember from heroic, this guy cleaves. And there is a bit of a change for the mythic mode right here. On heroic, you were allowed to go up to 4 stacks of the cleave before you died instantly. On mythic, only 3 stacks are allowed before you get slaughtered on the 4th one. This just means you need to have some great stack groups like on heroic. And I may be wrong on the heroic part, but the dungeon journal seems to now say 4 stacks for heroic and 3 for mythic. Oh well. The other big change for mythic is that night-twisted cadavers spawn from around the platform and walk towards the butcher. If a cadaver comes in contact with the butcher or a player, they will explode, doing a chunk of damage in a 20-yard radius. The longer the fight goes on, the more cadavers spawn. It was also observed that cadavers would prefer to spawn from the side the butcher was furthest away from. We'll get to how we dealt with that soon. But basically, the cadavers are something you need to soak constantly. They will explode and leave a void zone bubble that slows you and does significant damage. Even worse, they will be there for the entire fight, so you can't be willy-nilly about leaving them all over the place. Not to mention, the boss will sometimes be leaping around the room for the bounding cleave, so sometimes this means an ad will spawn where the boss just vacated. One really key thing to realize about these cadavers exploding is that it's a 20-yard radius for the explosion, so it does no good to have multiple people in the same area soaking. The damage of the explosion is not deadly, even though it is significant. So that takes us straight into strategy. For the most part, you want your ranged and healers covering the cadaver duty, with at least one person each spread out into the different areas that ads spawn to cover the bounding cleaves. All the normal mechanics apply here, of course. You need 2 melee soak groups. We were using 3 people in each group, but they were getting really low each cleave, so 4 is probably going to be safest. Of course, remember to switch for 3 stacks, otherwise you go splat. Back to cadavers, remember I mentioned that they spawn from the furthest spawn point from where the boss is currently tanked. That fact became a key part of our initial strategy. We would tank the boss on one side or the other, and let a single ranged soak the cadavers. When the boss would get ready for its bounding cleave, us ranged and heals would stack up here, and then we would spread out quickly after the cleave to then work on soaking cadavers from the other side of the platform. It seemed to be working for a little while at least. The main point for everyone was to spread away from cadavers if they weren't soaking them, to reduce the damage going out all over the place. And if you were soaking, trying really hard to place the void bubbles close to each other so that the platform can stay relatively clear. Again, this is likely a DPS race, and you only need to hold out for 5-ish minutes. I even wonder if a strategy where you tank the boss in one of these pools on the side would be helpful. Certainly there are some obstacles in the way, but it might give you more room to maneuver. Basically, worry about exploding the cadavers away from the raid and keeping your cleave rotation going, and you'll get this down. One last thing, remember that he frenzies in the last part of the fight, and you'll need some additional cleave soak groups. Probably 3 in total if I had to guess right now. Be prepared. That's it for this guide on the Butcher Mythic. Tanks, be sure to taunt swap for the stacks, and maybe help soak some cadavers during his bounding cleave. Healers, keep a close watch on the people soaking cleave, along with those soaking cadavers, but steer clear of the latter. DPS, be involved either in cleave or cadaver soaking, while staying spread until bounding cleave. Thanks for watching, and as always, please comment, like, and/or subscribe to the video if you found it helpful, and have a good one!